The Dracolian Empire had never lost a war. Across the stars, their names struck fear into the hearts of countless species. Planets burned, civilizations crumbled, and resistance was nothing more than an amusing distraction before the inevitable. They were warriors, conquerors, born and bred for destruction. And Earth? Earth was next. Supreme Warlord Zagroth stood before his assembled fleet, his massive, armored frame casting a long shadow over the command deck. His crimson eyes glowed with cruel amusement as he addressed his officers. 7 days, he growled, his voice like grinding metal. That is how long I give these humans before they kneel. His officers nodded, some chuckling in anticipation. The idea that an insignificant primitive species like humanity could resist the might of the Dracolian war machine was laughable. Reports claimed humans were physically weak, their technology outdated, their armies undisciplined. It was almost disappointing. Then again, sometimes it was fun to crush the truly helpless. Meanwhile, on Earth, the mood was less enthusiastic. Inside a high-security underground military facility, a group of generals and intelligence officials sat around a war table, looking at the holographic projections of the incoming fleet. The room was tense. No, scratch that. It was downright funereal. "We're screwed," General Matthews muttered, rubbing his temples. Admiral Jensen shot him a glare. "Thank you for that valuable strategic insight, General. We'll be sure to engrave it on humanity's tombstone." A younger officer cleared his throat. "Sir, we do have one option left. It's unconventional." Unconventional. The President of the United States, who had been sitting quietly, finally spoke. "At this point, son, if you tell me our best defense is strapping a nuke to a chimpanzee and launching it at their flagship, I might just approve it." The officer hesitated. "It's not quite that." He took a deep breath. "We send in Jack Collins." The room fell silent. Then General Matthews let out a bark of laughter. "You mean the Jack Collins? The lunatic who took out an entire cartel compound with nothing but a knife and a bad attitude? The guy who got banned from 3 different war zones for excessive aggression?" "The one and only," the officer confirmed. "He's between assignments." Translation: he'd gotten himself in trouble again. Admiral Jensen frowned. "Collins is good, but he's one man. Against an entire alien war fleet? That's suicide." "Maybe," the officer admitted. "But if anyone can make these bastards regret setting foot on Earth, it's him." The president leaned forward. "Get him?" Jack Collins was halfway through a rather excellent steak when 2 men in black suits showed up at his door. He chewed slowly, eyed them for a moment, then sighed. "If this is about the incident in Bolivia, I'd like to remind you that technically the goat survived." One of the agents didn't blink. "Mr. Collins, your country needs you." Jack groaned. "Every time you people say that, I end up jumping out of a plane, blowing something up," or he paused. "Actually, that does sound like fun, but I'm on vacation." The other agent handed him a tablet. Jack glanced at the screen. He saw starships, weapons, massive alien warriors that looked like someone had thrown a crocodile and a tank into a blender. Jack slowly put down his fork. "When do I start?" 2 days later, Jack stood in a secure hangar, gearing up. His black tactical suit was reinforced with cutting-edge armor plating, but he kept it light. Mobility mattered more than bulk. His weapons, however, were another story. The rifle in his hands was experimental, designed specifically to pierce thick alien hides. His sidearm packed enough punch to make a tank reconsider its life choices. And then, of course, there was his knife, his favorite. A 12-inch, carbon steel masterpiece of problem-solving. A grizzled engineer handed him a sleek helmet. "HUD's been upgraded. Infrared motion tracking, the works." Jack nodded and slid it on. His vision adjusted, and data flooded the display. He liked it. And the ship? A sleek black spacecraft stood ready. It was small, fast, and loaded with enough firepower to give even a Dracolian warship second thoughts. Jack smirked. "Now that's more like it." Admiral Jensen approached. "Your mission is simple. Cause chaos. We need to show these aliens that humanity isn't just another easy conquest. Hit their supply lines, sabotage their outposts, and make them regret ever thinking about Earth." Jack grinned. "So, business as usual." As he boarded the ship, a technician called after him. "Good luck." Jack chuckled. Luck is for people who plan to fail. The ramp closed, the engines roared to life, and Jack Collins shot into the void, toward a war the galaxy would never forget. Jack Collins had been in plenty of bad situations before. He'd escaped ambushes, dismantled terror cells, and even once convinced a cartel leader that he was a deity long enough to steal his helicopter. But sneaking onto an alien-occupied moon base? That was a new one. Crouched behind a jagged rock formation, he surveyed the Dracolian outpost through his helmet's enhanced optics. The place was buzzing with activity. Hulking reptilian warriors stomping around, securing supply crates, and occasionally growling at each other in their guttural language. Jack tapped the side of his helmet, activating his translator. Saw what happened to Squad 6? No. What? They stopped transmitting. Captain thinks it was a system error. I think it was something else. Jack smirked. Oh, it was definitely something else. The Dracolians had sent an advance team to Earth 2 days ago. Those soldiers were now very, very dead. Jack had made sure of that. Unfortunately, their failure hadn't deterred the main fleet, just made them more cautious. And caution meant security upgrades, extra patrols, and a whole lot more teeth. Not that it would help them. Jack scanned for weak points. The outpost had an energy shield surrounding it, standard procedure for planetary footholds. The shield generator sat near the center of the base, guarded by 2 particularly large Dracolians who looked like they moonlighted as wrecking balls. Beyond that, there was an armory, a command center, and a landing pad with 3 sleek alien dropships. Perfect. Jack checked his gear, silenced rifle, explosives, combat knife. Then he pulled out a small, spherical device the engineers had been particularly smug about. He pressed a button, and the device shimmered, turning almost invisible. A cloak drone. Jack gave it a pat. All right, buddy. Go make some noise. The drone zipped toward the base, its AI scanning for optimal disruption points. Seconds later, Jack's HUD displayed its chosen targets. He grinned. This was going to be fun. He moved swiftly, a shadow among the rocks. A lone Dracolian stood near the perimeter, scanning the darkness. Jack crept closer, knife in hand. The alien warrior barely had time to register the movement before Jack's blade found the gap in its armor. A gurgled snarl, a quick shove, and the body slumped soundlessly. Jack dragged it behind a boulder and dusted off his hands. One down, a couple hundred to go. The first explosion rocked the base a moment later. The cloaked drone had done its job beautifully, detonating a fuel supply and sending alien warriors scattering in confusion. Jack took the opportunity to slip past the perimeter and move toward the shield generator. The 2 massive guards were already on high alert, weapons drawn. One of them growled into a communicator. Under attack. Unknown enemy, possibly. Jack fired twice. The first shot hit the Dracolian in the throat, cutting off his transmission with a wet gurgle. The second warrior roared and charged. Jack sidestepped, ducked under a wild swing, and drove his knife upward. It took 2 solid stabs to drop the brute. Damn, you guys are tanky, Jack muttered, yanking his knife free. With the guards down, he set the charges on the generator. He took a moment to appreciate his work, then casually strolled away before. Boom! The shield flickered, sputtered, and died. Alarms blared. Dracolian warriors rushed out of buildings, barking orders and drawing weapons. Spotlights flared to life, sweeping the area. Jack clicked his tongue. All right, time for phase 2. He sprinted toward the armory. By now, the Dracolians were scrambling to figure out what was happening, their disciplined formations devolving into chaos. One warrior, twice Jack's size, spotted him and bared his fangs. You dare! Jack shot him in the face. He kicked open the armory doors, tossed in a grenade for good measure, and dove behind cover. The resulting explosion sent weapons and alien tech flying. Outside, an officer bellowed, asterisk, find the intruder. Kill them. Asterisk. Jack smirked. You can certainly try. He needed to keep moving. His real target was the command center. If he could access their systems, he could send false intel back to the fleet, make Earth seem far more prepared than it actually was. As he ran, his comm crackled. Admiral Jensen. Collins, what's your status? Jack ducked behind a crate, as plasma fire scorched past him. Oh, you know, making friends, enjoying the local nightlife, blowing up government property. Jensen sighed. Stay alive, Collins. We need you to actually finish the mission. Jack grinned. You wound me, Admiral. I always finish what I start. He vaulted over a barrier and landed inside the command center. A Dracolian technician turned in surprise, then slumped as Jack's silencer coughed twice. Jack moved to the central console and plugged in a data spike. The screen flickered as his AI assistant went to work, feeding misinformation into the enemy's network. Outside, things were getting messy. Dracolian troops were everywhere now, shouting, searching. Jack glanced at his watch. He had 30 seconds before they figured out his exact position. Time for an exit strategy. He sprinted toward the landing pad. One of the dropships was still intact, its ramp open. Two pilots stood guard, scanning the chaos below. Jack walked up behind them. Hey guys. They barely had time to turn before he knocked one out cold and shot the other in the leg. The wounded alien snarled, reaching for his weapon. Jack sighed and kicked him in the face. Nighty-night. With that, he climbed into the cockpit, powered up the ship, and gunned the engines. Down below, the Dracolians finally spotted him. Plasma blasts streaked toward the dropship, but Jack was already lifting off. As he soared into the sky, he activated the comm and sent one final message to the base below. You've just been introduced to humanity. And trust me, we're just getting started. Then he punched the thrusters and disappeared into the stars. Jack Collins had fought in some ugly battles before. He'd taken on warlords, insurgents, and enough cartel hit squads to fill a small country's cemetery. But this was something else. He crouched behind the wreckage of a downed Dracolian fighter, catching his breath. Plasma bolts screamed overhead, scorching the alien dirt. He could smell burning metal, ozone, and something that reeked like a mixture of wet dog and raw sewage. Probably the Dracolians themselves. A guttural roar rang out, and Jack barely had time to roll aside as a massive warhammer came crashing down where he'd been crouching. Dust and debris exploded into the air. Jack came up on one knee, raised his rifle, and fired 3 shots, dead center. The Dracolian warrior staggered, snarling, but didn't go down. Thick armor plating absorbed most of the impact. All right, tough guy, Jack muttered. He holstered the rifle, pulled his knife, and charged. The Dracolian swung the hammer again, but Jack ducked under it, closed the distance, and drove his blade into the gap between the alien's helmet and chest plate. A horrible, wet gurgle. The warrior collapsed. Jack yanked the knife free and looked around. The battlefield was a chaotic mess. Dracolian warriors stormed through the ruins, hunting him. Fires burned in the distance. Alien aircraft roared overhead. His escape ship had been shot down, leaving him stranded. All right, Collins, he muttered to himself. New plan. Kill everything that moves. He sprinted toward a pile of rubble, sliding behind cover as plasma bolts rained down. His HUD marked enemy positions, but the numbers were getting worse by the second. He was outnumbered 30-1. Jack smirked. He liked those odds. A group of Dracolian soldiers moved in formation, their weapons scanning for movement. Jack pulled a grenade from his vest, kissed it for luck, and tossed it into their midst. Boom! Chunks of alien flesh and armor rained down. The surviving warriors howled in fury. Jack popped up, fired off a few precise shots, then moved before they could return fire. He weaved through the battlefield like a ghost, striking hard and vanishing before the enemy could react. A massive Dracolian officer bellowed, "Coward! Face us like a true warrior." Jack reloaded and called back, "Buddy, if I fought like you, I'd be dead already." The officer roared and charged, swinging a massive plasma axe. Jack sidestepped at the last second and shot him point-blank in the knee. The alien stumbled, howling in pain. Jack grabbed a fallen Dracolian sword, nearly as long as he was tall, and swung it in a clean arc. The officer's head hit the dirt a second later. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. His muscles burned, ammo was running low, and the Dracolians weren't slowing down. He needed a way out. His comm crackled. "Collins, come in." Jack grinned. "Admiral, you're not going to believe how many of these lizard freaks I've killed. We're tracking your position, Jensen replied. "Evac's en route. Hold your position." "Yeah, about that," Jack said, looking at the incoming wave of enemy reinforcements. "Not really an option." Jensen sighed. "What's your plan?" Jack cracked his knuckles. "Going with plan B." "Which is?" Jack smirked. "Kill them all?" He tossed another grenade and sprinted toward a downed alien tank. Plasma fire slammed into the wreckage as he vaulted onto its hull. Inside, the pilot was still alive, groaning, trying to pull himself out. Jack shot him in the face and climbed in. The controls were unfamiliar, but destruction was a universal language. He pressed a few buttons, twisted a lever, and suddenly the tank's massive plasma cannon hummed to life. Jack grinned. "Now we're talking." He swiveled the turret and unleashed hell. The first shot obliterated a squad of Dracolian warriors. The second blew apart an enemy tower. The Dracolians scrambled, trying to regroup. But Jack kept firing, tearing through their ranks like a one-man apocalypse. Finally, in the distance, he saw it. Asterisk is right out of here. Asterisk. A sleek human dropship swooped in low, dodging enemy fire. The side hatch slid open, revealing a squad of Marines. One of them waved. "Collins, move your ass." Jack grinned. He hit the tank's self-destruct, jumped out, and sprinted toward the dropship. Plasma bolts scorched the air around him. Behind him, the alien tank detonated, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Jack leaped for the open hatch. A Marine grabbed his arm and yanked him inside as the ship pulled up. He collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard, covered in dust, sweat, and alien blood. One of the Marines whistled. "Damn, Collins. You look like hell." Jack smirked. "You should see the other guys." The ship rocketed toward the stars, leaving the burning battlefield behind. The Dracolians had learned a hard lesson today. Humanity wasn't just another species to conquer. And Jack Collins? He was their worst nightmare. The command bridge of the Dracolian warship Bloodfang was filled with an eerie silence. Normally, it was a place of discipline, of strength. But now, every officer, every warrior present, stood rigid, eyes locked on the massive figure at the center of the room. Zagroth, the butcher of Galdar ***. His emerald green scales shimmered under the dim red lighting, and his clawed hands tightened around the armrests of his throne. His golden eyes burned with fury. "This human has humiliated us." His voice was a guttural growl, low and dangerous. "He has slaughtered my warriors. He has made a mockery of our might." No one dared to speak. Finally, a junior officer hesitantly stepped forward. "Great Zagroth, we have tracked the human ship. He is aboard a Terran vessel, heading for her." Zagroth didn't let him finish. With a single swipe of his massive hand, the officer was sent flying across the bridge, crashing into a console with a sickening crunch. "I do not care where he is going." Zagroth rose to his feet, towering over the rest of his crew. "I only care about one thing." His claws raked against the metal as he took slow, deliberate steps forward. "I want his head." Meanwhile, Jack Collins was kicking back in the armory of the U.S. Valiant, enjoying a much-needed beer. "Well," he said, stretching, "that was a fun little trip." One of the Marines laughed. "Collins, you're the only guy I know who calls fighting an entire army alone a fun little trip." Jack grinned and took another sip. "Hey, it was a nice change of pace. Besides, those lizard freaks needed a reality check." Just as he was about to continue his well-earned relaxation, the ship's alarms blared. "Warning! Enemy warp signature detected." Jack raised an eyebrow. That was fast. The intercom crackled. "Collins, report to the bridge." "Now." Jack sighed, finished his drink in one gulp, and grabbed his gear. "Guess break time's over." On the bridge, Admiral Jensen stood with his arms crossed, his expression grim. "We got a problem." Jack looked at the holo display. A massive Dracolian dreadnought had just emerged from warp, its shadow eclipsing the stars. Jack whistled. "Well, that's a big boy." Jensen shot him a look. "That's Zagroth's flagship." Jack smirked. "Oh, so the big boss finally decided to show up? Took him long enough." The ship's AI chimed in. "Incoming transmission from the enemy vessel." Jensen nodded. Put it through? The screen flickered, and Zagroth's monstrous face appeared, his golden eyes burning with rage. Asterisk, asterisk, human, asterisk, asterisk. His voice was like distant thunder. You have insulted my people. You have slaughtered my warriors. And now, you will die. Jack took a step forward, cracking his knuckles. Hey, lizard breath. You want me? Come and get me? Zagroth snarled. I intend to. The transmission cut. The hollow display lit up with alerts. The Blood Fong was charging its weapons. Fighters were launching from its hangars. The battle was about to begin. Jensen turned to Jack. Tell me you have a plan? Jack grinned. Of course I have a plan. Jensen narrowed his eyes. Does it involve blowing things up? Jack patted his rifle. What do you think? The Valiant rocked as enemy plasma fire slammed into its shields. Red warning lights flared across the bridge. Shields at 70% and dropping. Jensen cursed. We can't go toe-to-toe with a dreadnought. We need an edge. Jack smirked. Oh, we have an edge. He tapped his wrist console, bringing up a hidden file. See, while I was on that Dracolian base, I didn't just kill things. I also borrowed a little something from their systems. Jensen raised an eyebrow. Define borrowed. Jack grinned. I got access to their command protocols. Jensen's eyes widened. You're telling me? I can override their fleet's orders. Jack tapped a few buttons. Now let's have some fun. He sent a single command through the Dracolian network. Suddenly, the Bloodfang's escort ships turned on each other. Zagroth's fleet was in chaos. On the enemy bridge, Zagroth bellowed in fury. What is happening? One of his officers frantically checked the systems. Our ships are receiving false attack orders. They think they are being ambushed. Zagroth's claws dug into the console. The human, he did this. Back on the Valiant, Jack leaned back in his chair, watching the chaos unfold. Jensen shook his head. Collins, you are one sneaky bastard. Jack winked. It's a gift. With the Dracolian fleet tearing itself apart, the Valiant seized the opportunity. Fire everything, Jensen ordered. The ship's cannons roared. Torpedoes, railguns, EMP blasts, asterisk, asterisk, everything was unleashed in a devastating barrage. The Blood Fong shuddered under the assault. Fires erupted across its hull. Its weapons sputtered. Its shields collapsed. On the enemy bridge, Zagroth pounded his fist on the console. His flagship was crippled. His fleet was in disarray. And worst of all, he had been outsmarted by a single human. Zagroth seethed. This is not over. He slammed his fist on a control panel, activating his ship's emergency warp drive. In a flash, the Blood Fong vanished into hyperspace. Back on the Valiant, the alarms faded. The battle was over. Jensen exhaled. He got away. Jack shrugged. Yeah, but next time, he won't be so lucky. Jensen looked at him. You planned for him to escape? Jack smirked. Oh, I wanted him to run. Now he knows what we're capable of. Now he knows that humans aren't prey. He leaned against the console. And next time, he won't come looking for a fight. He tapped his rifle. He'll come looking for revenge. The U.S. Valiant drifted in the calm void of space, the aftermath of battle still fresh in the air. Fires had been extinguished, the damaged hull was being repaired, and the crew finally had a moment to breathe. But the tension hadn't fully faded. Jack Collins sat on the bridge's tactical console, boots propped up, arms crossed. So, he said, breaking the silence, who wants to bet that Lizard Freak is screaming into a pillow right now? Admiral Jensen sighed, rubbing his temples. Collins, for the last time, stopped taunting the enemy commanders. Jack grinned. What? It's fun? The crew chuckled, a much-needed break from the grim intensity of battle. But even as the laughter faded, a single question lingered. Was it really over? Jensen turned toward the main display, where the last known trajectory of the Bloodfong flickered on the holomap. Zagroth ran. But he's not the kind to stay hidden forever. Jack leaned forward, his smirk replaced by something sharper. Good? I'd hate for our little feud to end too soon. The Admiral shot him a look. You have a real talent for making enemies. Jack shrugged. Hey, it's not my fault the bad guys keep underestimating us. Before Jensen could respond, the ship's AI interrupted. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. The display shifted to reveal a stern-faced general with graying hair. Valiant, this is General Carter. First off, damn good work out there. Jack gave a mock salute. Always happy to ruin an alien's day, sir. Carter smirked. And that's exactly why we need you, Collins. His expression hardened. Zagroth isn't going to let this go. We've intercepted communications. He's rallying every Dracolian warlord he can find. Jensen frowned. A full-scale retaliation? Carter nodded. It's looking that way. And if they come at us with everything they've got, this war is just getting started. A heavy silence settled over the bridge. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Jack exhaled, shaking his head. Man, I was really hoping for some vacation time. Jensen smirked. We both know you'd get bored in a week. Jack laughed. Yeah, all right, fair point. He turned back to Carter. So, what's the plan? Carter's gaze was steely. We prepare. We reinforce our colonies, rally our allies, and show the galaxy what happens when you mess with humanity. Jack grinned. Now that's a plan I can get behind. Carter's tone softened slightly. And Collins, whatever you did back there, that stunt with the fleet? He shook his